Hey, we're back. This is John,
It's Paul.
and it's What If Geeks, and it is the 2nd of February. Hey, after our triumphant return, we said we're going to be back every week. We're back every other week uh, because life sucks.
Right.
so, so Paul and I decided as long as we can get in every other week or so, it's good enough for the 10 or 12 of you. Keep watching. It'll be fun.
That's right.
So there were a few announcements that happened since we last recorded. One really big one, which is going to kind of basically take up the bulk of what we're going to talk about, and that's James Gunn dropped a huge announcement on the DCEU as far as what's going to happen with his stuff. So I mean, that's going to be a big discussion. I think the only other discussion I had on there were some thoughts on some other stuff, but or the little tidbit I had on Captain America: New World Order. I mean, if you want to go over that real fast, and then we can jump into the DCEU.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So yeah. Oh well, yeah. Say also same basic shit we've been doing, trying to catch up on watching everything. I was just telling Paul I just started watching The Last of Us, and I'm only partway through the first episode, and I love it. And we watched all of that '90s show season one, and that
How
was
is that?
it was good. It was
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely like you could tell they were trying to recapture the style and the camp of that '70s show.
Yeah.
But so sometimes it was a little hokey when I was like, the kind of over the top with how they were trying to capture the like exact same style. But
Yeah.
although I enjoyed it.
What is the thing I like about that 70s show is how they, I don't know, underhandedly admit that the kids smoke weed. Right. As they do that, as the table thing spins, right, it goes person to person to person. There's vaguely sort of smoke in the background, and they get sort of silly, and they never say what is actually happening. They're not like the kids are smoking weed, but that's what's happening. Um, is there a '90s equivalent to that in that '90s show?
Yeah, and ironically, it's if you think of like that '70s show, if it was made in the '70s, they wouldn't say that, right? They would actually they wouldn't say, oh, they're doing drugs or whatever, right?
Right.
But in the '90s, they would, right? They would admit it in the '90s. So
Oh, potentially, yeah.
as we progressed in what was allowed on TV or whatever, you would see shows about kids doing drugs or whatever. So they straight up admit it on this one.
Oh, is that right? I
Yeah.
feel like in the '90s we were still doing like there was still the episode of uh what okay, it was the '80s when Saved by the Bell did the episode where Jesse was on like caffeine pills or whatever,
Yeah.
and she got like that was the drug of the, I mean, that wasn't the drug of the '80s, but that was what they had her do, and that was as close I think as you could get to the line of like a kid is doing drugs, because in the '80s it was a sitcom of like, hey, we found a cigarette in your pocket, and like, oh, that's not my jacket, like we did that thing.
Yeah.
um, in the '90s I still feel like it was either an after school special or you know like the bad kid might have done drugs. It isn't until now we're like, oh yeah, kids smoke weed, it's fine.
Yeah, now it's definitely more accepted now, but I
Yeah.
think in the '90s you had a little bit more of the like you said, maybe it was more of the the bad kid did drugs or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little more out in the open in this one.
that's because this show is made, like the show is made now where everyone, weed's fine,
Yeah,
but sure, don't do drugs, um and
yeah,
stay in school. um but because it's made now, like we can talk about drugs openly on a show in prime time on the whatever, the CW or whatever channel that show's on, or is it Fox, and it's cool.
yeah. I think we watched it on streaming. It's streaming somewhere. I forget where now.
Oh, it's streaming on Hulu.
Oh yeah,
Okay, and so like now it's fine to talk about.
yeah.
But,
So, But overall, it was good though. It was fun to see, the characters coming back and whatever. You got a lot of cameos and this and that, but it was a fun take on it. So yeah, it's worth a watch. There was one season; it was a handful of episodes. Sure, there'll be a season 2 at some point, but we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So then, what have you been doing? You've been watching Wednesday still, right?
Yep. I watched some episode. I had to go to Seattle for work, so I watched some on the flight out. I watched some on the flight back. I am through episode 7, finished episode 7, so I've got just the finale left. And small spoiler alert, they got me. I kept thinking like, all right, it's you. I never saw who it turns out to be. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you finish, maybe we'll do a review of it. I'll recap it myself and make notes, and then we can do a review of it.
Yeah.
And like everything else we do, it'll be a month and a half late, so it'll be great. All right, so on to news. One big thing I read, because obviously now we're getting into the new year. There's so much stuff that's coming out this year, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, that I'm excited for. That ironically I forgot was coming out this year. Like you've got Ant-Man and the Wasp. We know is coming out this month. I think it's either this month or April that the X-Men '97 cartoon comes out on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
It's this year. I have to look it up. I was excited for that, so I got to go back and start watching the X-Men '93 cartoon so I can catch up a little bit. Because I used to love that one when I was younger.
Oh yeah, that was super good.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. A handful of other stuff that's coming out, but one thing I read, Captain America: New World Order is the next Captain America movie. It's going to have Anthony Mackie back as Sam, as the new Cap, right? But they've changed out the guy that was playing Thunderbolt Ross, and now it's going to be Harrison Ford. And apparently he's going to be in the movie.
Cool.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the big bad, but he's probably going to be some type of antagonist against Cap, which we also know that they're making a Thunderbolts movie, and Thunderbolt Ross is not initially connected to them, but later on in the comics he is. So it would make sense with the MCU being what it is to build this superhero team immediately based on his name and kind of go from there. So there's been pictures of that coming out. So I'm looking forward to that one. But it's going to be Harrison Ford. He's supposed to start here and then work his way into the rest of the MCU. So it was the first announcement I saw. And then just today, I saw that a few other people joined. One, Carl Lumbly, was already signed on to play Isaiah Bradley. And he was the black man who was Captain America for a while. When you remember the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, he was in that. So he's coming back, which is cool, which probably means we're going to get his grandson.
Yeah.
So, he'll wind up becoming Patriot at some point. Who knows if it's going to be in the movie?
In either the Young Avengers or whatever they're doing, movie or show.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for that. And then interesting, kind of embracing some other parts of the extended MCU. Tim Blake Nelson is coming back as the leader, which you remember he was in the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk movie.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end, you kind of saw his head starting to distort, and then you didn't hear anything else about him. They've already brought in Abomination in a few different spots. So to go back and get other characters from that movie is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Then an actress, Shira Haas, I don't think I've ever heard of her before, but she's playing Sabra, and I remember seeing her. She's a mutant Jewish Israeli superhero. She's kind of like their version of Captain America. She's like their country's hero.
Okay.
I've seen little news articles about her coming to the MCU. Whether or not people like that or not, who the hell knows? I don't know. There's good and bad articles on it, so I don't know. I've only seen her briefly in the comics years and years ago, so I don't really know much about the character. But I also like the idea of like, okay, you have like maybe other versions of people who took the super soldier serum, like Cap, and obviously Sam hasn't, but you've got Cap took it, maybe this person took it. You got Red Guardian out there
Yep.
from Black Widow. I like the idea of having other versions of these soldiers running around.
Yeah, other nations get their sort of here's our hero.
Yeah, and that could be what the New World Order is good and bad versions of super soldiers running around. Mm-hmm. But it's another one that's kind of shaping up into something different.
And you'd assume that the hero sort of takes on some of the characteristics of the country, right? And so, or at least the ideals of the country, right? So the ideals of America are what's behind Captain America. Maybe, the Israeli is more interested in defense of their nation, right? Because they're surrounded by Arab states that want them eliminated. So that character is more based on sort of defending their homeland. And that's an interesting interplay because if there's, I don't know, an Arab version or something else, how that interaction would be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. So yeah, and after when we get done, we can kind of talk about our thoughts on some of the other stuff that Marvel's been talking about. But on to our biggest one, DCEU. Holy shit!
Holy cow!
Yeah, I'm gonna quote Dwayne Johnson here when he announced Black Adam, and he said, "The hierarchy of the DCEU is about to change." He wasn't wrong.
Yeah, he was not wrong.
James Gunn and what's his face, the other guy came in, and now they're all fired. Everybody's gone. So
there was a post on, I can't remember whose Instagram it was or someone's social media, and it had a picture of the Justice League cast, and everyone was like, it was a colored photo that someone had made black and white, and only Jason Momoa was still in color, and it said "Last One Standing."
Yeah. I want to change this up a little bit. So, boop, there you go. Look at that.
There it is.
Yeah. So well, that's not that one, but yeah, it'll be good for this conversation. So wow. So they announced James Gunn, and I didn't write the other guy's name down. He was in the article I was just reading, and now I don't know where the hell it went. Let's see. Hang on. Nope, it's all about the interview with James Gunn. Well, it's James Gunn and another guy are doing Peter Safran. There it is. James Gunn and Peter Safran are taking over DCU films and TV shows, right? So they're essentially going to be the Kevin Feige, like we've been saying for the last 3 years we've been doing this fucking podcast. They need to do this. They need to go this route.
Yep.
So they finally decide, okay, we're going to do this. Gunn just came out in an interview, and
that's a win for us, by the way. Let's claim that as a win. That's our win. Yeah. We've said, hey, you guys need a Kevin Feige. You need one person. We said one person, but two people's fine to oversee the whole thing. So we're going to claim that as a win. Right.
Yeah. So we'll that's a What If Geeks.
You're welcome.
Yeah. That's right. You're welcome. We've done nothing else in 3 years, but we got this one.
We did this.
So he comes out and he said he is co-CEO of DC Studios, and he outlined about a dozen projects that are coming up for the first chapter. And the first chapter is dubbed Gods and Monsters, which I remember that being a run and a story arc in there somewhere too. So that's kind of cool.
It was a DCEU animated movie. And I don't know if it was a comic run or not.
I'm pretty sure it was, because before the animated movie, I remember hearing the term, and then there's actually a couple of comic shops down here in Florida named Gods and Monsters, and they got it out of that.
Yeah. Gods and So according to Wikipedia, Gods and Monsters is a 2015 American animated superhero film and the 23rd film of the DC Universe animated original movies. Cast, career, reception, tie-in media, and then a comic book series. And it's interesting. Like, it's a cool name because if you think about their power, I mean, they are godlike, right? I mean, that was the way that the difference, I think, between the Justice League movie, either the first version or the Snyder cut, they're all, even Batman, they're all godlike. And Marvel made the Avengers all very real and very human seeming, right? Even Thor and Hulk, who have godlike powers, and Thor's a god, they're very human in how they act and react, and they seem more approachable than Superman, Batman, etc. So they're treated that way.
Yeah, its difference has been brought up a couple times whenever they have the crossovers. Like they had the JLA Avengers crossovers a couple times, the one that ended in the Amalgam universe too, and they bring it up in there where the Marvel characters are saying how the superheroes of the DC universe act like they're above everybody else and they're gods and this and that, and the DC heroes are like, why aren't you people doing more to, so there's that difference in the two ideologies of the companies, and they talk about it in those series, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And the plot of Gods and Monsters is like there's an alternate universe of a Batman, a Superman, a Wonder Woman under sort of different names, and they're brutal. Like they keep law and order, if you will, by like just straight killing people. So it's interesting that that's the title of chapter 1.
Yeah. So out of those, there's a handful of things that they've announced, and we'll go through each one. We can skip these next 2 lines because I kind of fleshed it out more beneath that. The first one, which is going to be the start of the DCEU, is called Superman Legacy, and that's already got a date of July 11th, 2025. So it's a ways off, but I mean, they just got hired on, so we got to give them time to work. But Gunn said this isn't an origin story, so I guess you're not going to get a Superman origin story, which is cool. We don't need it. I mean,
right, we know it.
It's like they did with Spider-Man and with the last Batman. They kind of glossed over it. You kind of get an idea of what was going on, but you've seen it all before. But basically, he said this is Superman dealing with the differences between or trying to get comfortable with both his Kryptonian heritage and his human upbringing. And he said what I really liked in this, which was different than the Man of Steel, which is what we said he should be. He said Superman is kindness in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned. And we said that after Man of Steel, where they jumped right into Batman versus Superman and they killed him, and there wasn't enough time for Superman to become the true Superman that he's supposed to be.
Right.
So I like this. I hope that they let him be Superman and be that embodiment of truth, justice, all that, and kindness, and go forward for a while like that.
And here's what will also be interesting. I assume that none of the things in the Snyderverse / Justice League movie have anything to do with Superman dying, or anything. Like that just won't be a thing.
Right. So from what I've read and heard Gunn say, the only thing that's going to stay from the previous iteration of the DCEU would be Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I think the Suicide Squad, actually definitely the Suicide Squad, because it's something he says later. And I would assume Peacemaker as well, because it's something else he said in this interview. So the 2 things he made, and then
stay, right?
Aquaman stay. So I mean that's fine to me. You might, well, because we've complained about how they handled the DCU from the beginning. If they had taken their time and done it properly, they could have told all those stories by now. Not even by now, but in the next couple of years, they could have hit that uh, Batman, Superman, Justice League, fight Doomsday.
Yep.
They should have built up to it more. So I'm glad that they're going to reset some of that shit.
And I wonder if we get sort of Superman, you know, are we getting year one Superman? Are we getting, you know, Superman's been at it for a while, so he's got a legacy, not the legacy yet, but like he's got a history and he's built some credibility. I wonder if we're gonna, right, you start at year one and you watch it play out, or you just come into the story sort of midway through a career. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, because this thing's saying it's where the hell is that? Come on, scroll, you fucker. This saying that it's balancing Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing, embodiment of truth, justice, and American way, kindness in a world that thinks kindness is old fashioned, and that's all it says.
Yeah.
So, but it says it's not an origin story. So, I wouldn't mind seeing a younger Superman, but maybe he's been at it for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, maybe year one, maybe kind of like what they did with Pattinson's Batman. He's at it for a while, but he's still new. You know, still learning shit. That would be cool.
And the thing about the Superman story is interesting in a lot of ways. I think we've said this before. They've made Superman in various comic iterations so powerful, even in the movies, so powerful that the interesting parts of Superman are the things he can't do, or the weak, right, kryptonite, some of the weakness things. But when you're that powerful, and you know someone like you could knock out half a world in an eye blink if you wanted to, and with that level of strength and power and all the stuff, you just having someone placed under arrest and not ripping them in half shows remarkable restraint and a level of kindness where even in a world where people are like, you're weak, like really you're going to call Superman out as being weak, just because he's kind or nice or however you want to phrase it. That'll be interesting if they really dig into that. Otherwise it just becomes action movie, and we've seen that before. So you have to deal with the I can catch a plane in midair, and I can save a sinking cruise ship if I wanted to and just lift it out of the water. That's cool, but I can't stop, you know, some kinds of abuse and things happen and trafficking and all the terrible things that happen in the world that Superman can't stop. Would be an interesting way to dive in. I'm not sure if that's what people want to see. That's what I would want to see. So we'll see.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see. Well, all right. So like when we were growing up, there was a time where like Superman was like throwing fucking planets and moons and shit,
right?
Which is why they did the whole Death of Superman thing and killed him with Doomsday, because they had to basically put a reset on the character because he was getting too. They would just write up new powers for like whatever. Like there was one where he was like shooting little Supermans out of his hand and shit. You know, they're like all kinds of weird powers that he had.
Yeah.
Just to tell a story, and got so convoluted that they were like, "Now we gotta take him back to the basic powers." I'd like to see them keep. I mean, he should be powerful. He's Superman, but do your standard powers, keep the story somewhat grounded because he's trying to develop a name for himself. Maybe some of the world knows about him, or he's a rumor and they're just starting to learn about him. That would be fun. And see as he's doing all these good things, because now he's also in a world, like it says, they probably think he's kind of hokey. To paraphrase Captain America said in Avengers, when he's like, "Isn't the Stars and Stripes a little old fashioned?" And what's his face? Coulson's like, "The world could use a little old fashioned right now."
Yeah.
I mean, it's not wrong. The world could use Superman right now. I mean, especially the world we're in right now. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
You could use the Superman. Somebody who's just going to be like, "No, I'm good because I'm good." Period.
Right. Right.
and let him, but for the love of God, James Gunn, no cellophane S off the chest. Okay,
Right.
do that. With,
Let's
let
not
that
do
guy.
that.
Yeah. But I'd love to see, like you said, show how he has to restrain himself from hurting people. Where you catch little glimpses of it in some of the other movies where you can show how powerful he is in simple things like the Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, when the guy shoots him almost point blank and it literally bounces off his
Bounces off his eyeball. Yeah.
that scene was awesome. Or the one in um, Justice League when they bring him back to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Henry Cavill. And when Flash, fastest man alive, is running, and he just
It's
looks
yeah.
just to show you how fast he is too. Like those little things.
Yeah.
If Gunn uses shit like that to show just how powerful he is, and then you realize how much he's really holding back, and let that build up, he can deal with Luthor, deal with whatever the first movie. You know what I mean? And then like your sequel, you bring in something like Brainiac.
Mhm.
But for the love of God, you got to bring in Brainiac at some point because like nobody's done him yet.
Yep.
The animated shit. The animated shit, he's awesome. Bring him in. Bring in a threat where Superman or not Darkseid, but like Magog or whatever. Like one of the other guys is really really powerful, right?
Yeah.
And somebody who he's got to unleash on, and that would be cool.
Yeah.
Build him up to where you're showing him restrained, and then in the sequel, give him somebody who like he's got to really fucking go all out on, and maybe barely win. Then after that, after you've built up, you're in your phase 2 or 3. Now bring in your Justice League. Let
Right.
him. Now you have a threat where he can't handle it by himself and he needs help. You can build that up within between this movie and the next one of him learning how to be Superman in this world,
Yeah.
then how he has to deal with threats from off of this world,
And asking for he needs to ask for help, and that should be hard for him, right? Because he's Superman.
Because he's Superman, he's used to doing it, and he
Yep.
realizes I can't be everywhere at once. I have to do, So that would be cool.
Yep.
Okay, so one personal thing between the two of us. What I wanted Henry Cavill to come back, and
Yep.
obviously that's written out. So, spitball. You have any ideas of who you might want to fucking play? I would love for them to shock you and actually have Cavill come back, but just have it like be a ruse.
Yeah. Um,
Cavill, who the fuck do you get to play Superman?
I think I don't know, sort of complete unknown, somebody we've never heard of is fine. We've never heard of Gal Gadot before. She was uh, Wonder Woman. Um, so somebody like that. Um, this is a pretty huge deal. It's a huge role for someone to get.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I think the big 3 should be more unknown actors. You
Yeah.
can sprinkle in well-known actors into some of the other roles, but you don't want to lose these major characters in an actor. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd rather it be somebody we don't know. All right, we'll see. We've got 2 years, and we'll find out. Next one, Batman: The Brave and the Bold. And when I first heard this, all I saw was it's Batman and Robin. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I went and I read that article, and it is Batman and Robin, but it's Bruce Wayne meeting and taking in his son Damian Wayne, who in the comics was raised by Talia al Ghul, right? Ra's al
Yep.
Ghul's mother. So he is Ra's al Ghul's grandson. He's been raised as an assassin, and they did the whole Batman and Robin story with them, where they brought Damian over, and Damian's he's a killer, and Batman's
Yep.
like, he didn't know about him the first 8 to 10 years of his life, and now he takes him in to try to be a father to him and to teach him how to be Robin instead of being this killer. And literally in the in the description on this article, James Gunn says, he hasn't known about his son in the first 8 to 10 years of his life, and so he brings him into the life, and that's this whole story. And he goes, it's our favorite Robin, who's Damian Wayne, and he's a little son of a bitch.
Yeah. It's a I don't know. Brave and Bold is that comic was it started as different sort of one-off sci-fi stories and whatever, but it ultimately became we're going to partner someone with Batman for a couple episodes, for a couple issues. That was the thing. Like you threw together Batman and Aquaman, Batman and Green Lantern, Batman and Plastic Man, whatever.
Yeah.
It was the like throw somebody in there with Batman for an issue or two or a story arc. And this is cool that they've done this in some animated movies. The Batman and Robin animated movie, right? But yeah, the story of Batman and Damian Wayne, I think, is really cool. So we're getting a new Batman, which is going to be interesting. And he had the way this would have to work is he would have had to have been Batman for a bit, to have come up against Ra's al Ghul, to meet his daughter, right? It's not Batman. It's not a Batman Year One story. So we're going to cast a new Batman. That's also interesting. While we were talking about this and you were doing the intro, I just Googled who should be the new Superman. There's a bunch of actors on this list. This is from thedirect.com. Okay. And some of them I know. And then I got to, and I'm like, dude, it should be Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick, who was Hangman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that should be him.
Yeah. That'd be perfect. Yeah. That's a good one. I like that. But, yeah, this Batman Brave and the Bold. I like this because I was getting out of reading most comics by the time Damian Wayne came around. So I'd seen him and I read a few things with him in it. But yeah, in the beginning, I read that beginning part of him being this little shit that was constantly pain in the ass to Batman. But then I saw that he was Robin, and then I saw how he had become like one of the best Robins. Because like he actually started to embrace what his father was teaching him and everything.
Yeah.
And so I started to really respect what they did with the character, as far as the contradiction between how he was raised and what he wanted to be, and be more like his father. And so I think it'll be cool. I want to see what they're going to do. I'm hoping that's another movie. I think that's what I read.
Here's what should happen in this movie, and there's not enough info on it. Obviously, right? He just came out with the title.
Yeah.
But here's what the one of the coolest parts of both the comic series where this happens and the animated movie is the relationship between Damian Wayne as Robin and Nightwing.
Yeah.
Because Damian Wayne is like, he's my actual father. He's not your father. And Nightwing's always been like the heir apparent and the most thing like a father figure Dick Grayson ever had. And so Grayson starts as Robin as a kid, right? And then becomes a grown man and goes out on his own, becomes Nightwing, does the whole thing, moves, new city. But Damian comes in and they fight, and it's not a like Nightwing sort of edges him out, but not by a lot. Because the kid was raised by the League of Assassins. And but Damian just talks so much shit that Nightwing almost can't stand it. And he just wants to pummel him, but he's like, he's my mentor's kid, and we have a strained relationship, I get, but like I'm not, you know, I can't knock his kid out. Um, and Damien keeps calling him soft and all these other things, and like you're not as, you know, you're not my father, and you're not as good as him, and you don't deserve the the mantle of Batman and all the stuff. Because in the series, comic series, Batman and Robin, Nightwing takes over as Batman.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's that interaction's great. So I hope in this movie there's a Nightwing.
I hope so. I'd love to see it. And again, we're jumping kind of in the middle of some of this shit, but there's room to make these movies where you're telling these stories that are more for the fans than they are for just people who don't know, and you're gonna make your money. I want to see
Well,
how they do it.
and we'll get into this in a second because there are some things on here on this list that are out there, man. Like we'll get to in a second, but you're going to make a Swamp Thing movie, and you're going to make The Authority, and you're going to make Creature Commandos. Like we're digging into the B and C list.
Oh yeah,
or the D list of DC at the beginning. You're not even waiting as long as Marvel did to bring out Shang-Chi and right, Moon Knight and all the stuff.
Right, yeah. But on the flip side of that, though, with someone like Gunn, this list made perfect sense to me. With his creativity and his knowledge of all this shit, for him to take, here's a handful of stuff that everybody knows, and I'm gonna pepper in a bunch of shit you don't know, and then I'm gonna build this world. It makes sense coming from him that he would do this, you know. So speaking of, all right, so now you have a Wonder Woman series. It's a series, and Gal Gadot is not coming back, which somewhat disappointing because I said in the beginning when they first signed her on that I didn't think she'd make a good Wonder Woman, and she grew on me. But the series is Paradise Lost, and basically he's described it as like a Game of Thrones type of series that's more about the politics on Themyscira and how this whole all woman island works. So I'm like, all right, it's gonna be interesting.
I'm here for it. I'm gonna try not to be gross and say like, yeah, let's see it.
All woman Themyscira Game of Thrones. Hey,
um,
what's the rating?
So yeah, right. I'm I want all this stuff to work. I love DC. Like I'm a DC guy. I want it all to work. It'll be interesting to watch a show set on Themyscira that doesn't have Wonder Woman in it. I said the same thing about Gotham that was on Fox, which was the Commissioner Gordon, James Gordon show before he becomes commissioner, and Batman as a kid, Bruce Wayne as a kid. I was like, I'm not watching a Batman show with no Batman in it. And then I watched a couple, and I'm like, all right, I can be kind of into this.
The show wasn't bad, and then but eventually, what happened? They wound up where the kid starts to become Batman anyway.
Yeah.
So
you can't because
eventually
4 seasons in, you're like, what? We got to do something because the kid's getting older, and so
the kid's getting older.
Makes sense.
You're already establishing his rogues gallery as active, so
right.
Do something. So I don't know what they're going to do here, but I mean, if they just do a series about the mascara, it could be fun. It could be interesting. A lot of those shows that have the more political ish backdrop or whatever, people like them. More of a drama kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows how they don't interfere with the world of man?
Yeah,
the world of man away from themselves. That could be fun.
We've also seen this out of the Marvel universe, and we've seen it out of the Star Wars universe. Is that you can do it if you are good enough at telling stories, and I think James Gunn is. Then you've got this incredible sort of playground of things, of characters you can bring in and ways to tell stories, and you can tell different kinds of stories, right? So you've got essentially a Western show in the Star Wars universe through The Mandalorian. You've got a kind of a crime Boss show with Book of Boba Fett. You've got we've had a buddy show with Falcon and Winter Soldier. We've had this sort of retro TV thing in WandaVision. So you can do a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
And this is that. This is we're gonna kind of make a Game of Thrones style show dealing with this universe, and we've got the canvas and the paints and the things to do it. So let's make this kind of show here, and we'll make, who knows when we get to Lanterns, like what is that? That's kind of a cop show, right? Because that's what the Guardians of Oa are. That's what the Green Lantern Corps. I'm sorry, not the Guardians. That's what the Green Lantern Corps is. They're essentially cops assigned to different sectors.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
So this should be good. All right, next Swamp Thing, which again, like you said, you're starting to pull out.
Yeah.
They were making a Swamp Thing already, or I know they tried it. They've tried it a few times. I know there was one back when we were younger.
There was a Swamp Thing movie, I think. It had
There was a movie when we were younger, and then they just recently they made one, or they made a couple episodes of one a few years ago, or maybe 2 years ago. I forget. It wasn't too long ago, but I swear they made one, and then it just kind of fell off because of the whole change.
Swamp Thing, 1982, directed by Wes Craven. Stars Louis Jordan, Adrienne Barbeau, who was she was on Maud. She was the daughter on Maud.
She was huge in like horror and all kinds.
Yeah. I'm looking at the IMDb page for it. I don't see anybody else in here I recognize. So we've done this thing, but that felt like a weird thing then. It feels like a weird thing now, but I guess if you're doing sort of a ecological, because the whole, something sort of a story about the ecology and nature and whatever, and
yeah,
that's probably what we're doing here.
Yeah, which could be cool in today's day and age.
Yeah.
And it's possibly being directed by James Mangold, who directed Logan, which interesting. I mean, I don't remember anything else he's done. I know I loved Logan, so I mean, you at least got me interested. Yeah. Booster Gold. Here we go again with the out of left field. The only thing I knew about Booster Gold back in the day was that he was always hanging around Blue Beetle. That was back when Blue Beetle was Ted Kord, and he wasn't the kid with the scarab, right? Which is the movie they were just making not too long ago, which was actually the kid, but I think Ted Kord was still in it. Ted Kord.
Is that movie done now? Is the Blue Beetle movie done?
I think it's done.
Have they stopped it?
Oh,
have they stopped it? Is it coming out?
I have no idea. We'll have to Google that. But I know that Booster Gold is just some loser dude from the future who steals some time travel technology and some future tech and travels back in time to the age of heroes, which is like Superman and all those guys, to become a superhero himself. And he gets found out, but he still helps out with the Justice League, and he's on like one of the lower Justice Leagues, like Justice League Europe or whatever. He's like with all these other guys, but he's always hanging around with Blue Beetle. So it could be a fun.
He's got like the Legion flight ring and something else, and can shoot some beams of something. But he's and because he's from the future, 25th century, something like that, like he has a knowledge, and he's got this little, I don't know, robot thingy, then they call it a valet unit that named Skeets, that travels with him and like tells him, oh, this is going to happen, because the thing had downloaded all of 20th and 21st century history.
Right.
So it tells him what's going to happen.
Yeah. So you can be a hero. So I think this could be a fun one. So almost kind of like a modern day Greatest American Hero.
Yeah, right.
But like he's kind of out of his element, but he's going to try it. What he really wants to do. And now the biggest rumor now is that, or well, after they announced this, immediately all the fans took to the internet and said, "We want Chris Pratt to play Booster Gold," and it's huge. Like there's a huge like upswell of fans wanting Chris Pratt to play Booster Gold. Looking at him, looking at like his personality and his style in the movies and everything. I mean, just picture Star Lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect for the role. Now, the big thing there, I guess the thing that could give the fans hope in this is that after Guardians 3 this year, Guardians is done. James Gunn is gone over to here. He has history with James Gunn. And
Yep.
Gunn specifically said he wants to bring Pratt into his DCEU somewhere.
Yeah.
So, duh. It's basically kind of like one of those. He might as well just have winked right at his Twitter account.
Right.
Like, yeah, I want to bring him in somewhere. So I think Chris Pratt's going to play him, which I think would be a perfect fit.
That would be cool.
Yeah. And that was definitely something that I was looking forward to now that I've read about it. And then on to the Lanterns series, the Green Lantern. I like the fact that they're going to make this a series, and because they don't need to do just all movies, right? So you have a series that you're going to do. I also like that there's so many fucking Green Lanterns out there. You can touch on them throughout the series. You can introduce little like other Green Lanterns from other sectors and everything. Explain how it's a whole Green Lantern Corps, like police, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're centering on Hal Jordan and John Stewart, who are the Green Lanterns from Earth and this whole sector, right? Mm-hmm. The biggest thing I like about that is that whenever they talk about the Green Lantern, one, Hal Jordan is the Green Lantern we grew up with, right? He was the first one that we knew of. Go back into the 50s and 60s, and you had a Green Lantern that was like completely different than what was going on here.
Yep.
But Hal Jordan was the first one that we knew of. Alien crashes down, gives him the ring as he's dying, right? That whole story. John Stewart came later, and I forget exactly what story he took over. I think Hal Jordan had to leave Earth or something or whatever, and John Stewart took over. So John Stewart was a black man who was a Green Lantern for Earth and this sector.
Yep.
Every time recently people talk about Green Lantern, they all want to see John Stewart. In one of the animated series, he was the only Green Lantern they referred to or they referenced, and he showed up there. They really didn't talk about Hal Jordan at all, which was cool there too. I like that they referenced both of them.
The two, that's the Justice League animated series. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It started with the 7 of them, right? Hawk Girl, not Hawkman, Hawk Girl. Mm-hmm. And then it became like Justice League Unlimited.
It had
like hundreds of them.
Half the shit behind me plus.
Yeah. But yeah, that one was John Stewart and no mention of Hal Jordan. Like Hal did not exist.
Yeah, and which for me was fine because there, like, you had diversity and whatever. We've had this conversation time and again on this podcast about doing diversity just for the sake of doing diversity. That to me, you weren't doing that. It was making a diverse cast, right? But it was a diverse cast out of established characters that have been there. Like, all right, well, right now, this story that we're telling is John Stewart. It wasn't like we're just going to replace somebody and put somebody else in there. The thing I like about this is because everybody kept crying that they only wanted to see John Stewart and nobody else. I like that this is going to be both of them because for me, for these stories, we've said it before, stop letting the whole race and gender thing get in the way of good storytelling. You have these two who work together time and again in the comics and respect each other and help each other take care of this sector. Let them do it. tell that story. That's what I want to see. I think it'd be really cool to see that story because it's a big sector. You need more than one.
The other thing is like this character, if you get the ring, you are Green Lantern. Like
Yeah.
there is no one Green, like Guy Gardner was a Green Lantern. Kyle Rayner was a Green Lantern. There's a guy named I think current comics have a guy named Baz something. There's an Arab person of Arab descent who's a woman who's a
Yeah,
Green Lantern.
recently, yeah.
Yeah. There's a there's a Green Lantern that's an entire planet. There's a Green Lantern that's a squirrel. There's a Green Lantern that's an eyeball. Like Kilowog is a green. Like there are other sentient beings that are Green Lanterns. There are 4 or 5 humans that are Green Lantern. Like it would be really cool to see like them in the I don't know the academy or whatever as they train to be a Green Lantern, and then you're sent to your sector, and then there's Guy Gardner in there somewhere, and right the planet one and the eyeball one and the carrot one, like just those sort of references would be cool.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to see it. Just like I said, I want to see them tell the stories. I don't want them to focus on it, and this was a good sign to me. Like, don't focus on any of the woke or any other kind of message bullshit. Tell me a story, and having both of them there to represent the Green Lantern Corps is cool for me. Because for me, I watched both of them. I watched Hal Jordan in the comics, and I watched Jon Stewart in the animated series, and I love them both. Yeah. So not having to pick is cool. Yeah. Then we get on to the Authority, which is wild. This is an interesting one. So these guys were Wildstorm Comics before they folded into DC.
Yep.
And I remember reading a couple of them. So I'm not the authority on the Authority. My knowledge on them is not that great. I know that they're heroes, but they're heroes that say you can't solve the world's problems by just being black and white and just being good. You have to do it with a little bit of an attitude.
Yeah.
And so basically, like they don't agree with the whole Superman, truth, justice, or whatever. They believe they're punching you in your teeth.
It was so Wildstorm was the Jim Lee comic. Like he left and did his own comic book company, because in the 90s everybody did that, and then they got bought up by and so they're here like the whole Wildstorm thing. They had to be a little bit more over the top. Everybody was drawn in that Jim Lee sort of giant muscle style, and so like I don't know. There were 1 or 2 of those titles that I got back then, but the Authority was not one of them. And so when I saw it, I had to Google it, and I read about them on Wikipedia because I didn't know who they were. But yeah, I like the idea that in the same universe you'll have Superman, the epitome of kindness and goodness and justice, and then you'll have these guys that are like, that's cool for him. We have to do this.
Yes. Yeah. I like that too. And it'd be cool to see eventually them cross paths.
Right.
Because I've seen the whole like Justice League versus the Authority thing. That one I saw. So it can be fun. And they're more realistic. So it's almost like when I first saw them, I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of like the boys, but they're not the boys. They've got that edge, but they're actually good. So it can be fun. And Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, sure. Yeah. The only thing I said on this, good.
My I think about Supergirl the way I think about Batgirl and Batwoman. Like, you start with them being lesser versions of the male hero, right? And
This is
that
how
was
they were when we grew up.
that was their start. Well, right, and that I should say it that way. They were started as, we have Superman and we have Batman, and we have tween to teenage boys who read these things, and we want to make a product for others. And so we will take what we know and make it a girl, and we will take what we know and make it a girl. And so they had a Batgirl and a Supergirl so that girls would read comic books. Cool. Except all you did was take Superman. This is how they got started. I'm not saying this is a good thing. You took Superman and you made the female equivalent, but you made her less powerful. You took Batman and you made a female version and you made her less powerful. Which is why Wonder Woman, right? But Wonder Woman is her own thing and powerful in her own, always was. And so you, in the Supergirl show that was on the CW, which was really good, they almost never had a Superman because they didn't want there to be a stronger character.
Yeah.
Great. That show was really well done. Batwoman had to exist in a CW universe where there was no Batman, so that there couldn't be, right? She couldn't be rescued. Again, fine. That show didn't make it very long, but I will be interested to see if they do Supergirl that way, and if there's no Superman to not have to come rescue her, because I don't think that's what they're looking for here. They're not trying to make her lesser than, which is fine. Like, make her powerful as well.
I'll read to you what he said here, but first I want to after the version that we grew up with, right? It was maybe, God, it's 2023 now. Maybe 15, 20 years ago. There was when they did like all like they've revamped, Marvel's revamped their universe, DC's revamped their universe probably at least a dozen times, just in the time we've been reading. I don't remember if it was the New 52 or if it was one of those. I want to say it was the New 52 version, but they told the whole story, the origin story of Superman again, he comes down to the rocket as a baby. But they show right after they launch him in the rocket, they send Kara after him. She's his older cousin.
Yeah.
And they send her after him to look after him, but her rocket gets knocked off course, and she's floating around for years until Superman, she's still stuck in that cryogenic chamber.
Right.
And she's like 16, 17, right?
Yep.
He grows up, becomes Superman, this whole thing, and then she finally crashes on Earth. So now she's actually younger than he is.
Right.
And she's impulsive, and she's conflicted because she's the one that was supposed to be here to watch out for him.
Yep.
And so that version of the character, the story that they told with that character was so much better than what we grew up with, where it was just a weaker version.
Right.
She wasn't necessarily weaker. She was younger, so she wasn't as powerful. She wasn't on Earth as long as him, so she wasn't always powerful. But the detail and the character that they built into her in that version was really cool.
Yeah.
So now I read this, and it says it's based on Tom King's comic book series that came out just last year. So I didn't read that. Is a very different type of Supergirl. In this series, we see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time as an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock chip off of Krypton and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then came to Earth when she was a young girl and is much more hardcore. She's not exactly the Supergirl we're used to.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm all for that one. I think That should be
That's how you do it and not make her lesser than.
yes, yeah. Because I'm really yeah, like you said, I'm really tired of that. Like
Right.
we've seen it. Like, we grew up with it. Now, like you said, was it right? No. Was it a product of the times? Yeah. That's how they. It was just marketing to try to get
And
screen.
and I think every previous Supergirl version, so many of these things are drawn by men, and that's where you get into some of this stuff. And so there's been Supergirls with like super short skirts. Um, that there was an era where she had a white shirt with the S logo, but it was like cut
Right.
off,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like
Cut off midriff.
right, total midriff, and then a short skirt. Um, we've done all of those things where you're like, okay, but like, why would you dress like
Right.
that's what adolescent boys wanted to see out of female characters in comic books, and that doesn't. I'm not saying it's okay. That's what happened, and when you do that, you make her sort of lesser than or an object, and that's why the CW Supergirl was really cool. At some point, they
I was
they
about to
even
say that.
stopped the
That's
skirt.
why I liked her because it was a
Yeah,
more realistic outfit.
right.
So,
Um, and yeah, and it was really well done, and that story sounds really cool. Like I'm here for that.
and Melissa Benoit still look hot. Just to show you guys we haven't changed that much. But yeah, so I'm hoping this is going to be pretty good. It sounds like it's going to be good. Next, which is the really off the wall one, Creature Commandos. I had to go look this up because I thought I
I
knew
did
what
too.
it was, and I was kind of right in what I thought it was. So basically, it's like Frankenstein and a vampire and a wolfman and the Bride of Frankenstein, and like they're all
Yep.
commandos. Like it's wild. So I mean, sure, I'll watch it. I think this might just be James Gunn's way of going. You remember that Dark Universe you guys tried to do and failed miserably at? I'm going to do
Yeah.
it.
It's also like you almost sort of see the genres that he's going to do, right? You've got traditional superhero stuff, you got the Game of Thrones style, you got what looks like to be a cop show, you got the ecological thing, and now you've got horror. So we're trying to hit all the Booster Gold's probably some sort of comedy. You Greatest American Heroes is a great analogy. Um, this is the horror. This is the horror movie.
Yeah, which is one of the things we loved about Marvel.
Yep.
Every one of them was kind of just taking a genre that you know and putting superheroes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing that with this, I think it would be pretty cool. I don't remember if this was supposed to be a series or a movie. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, yeah. Its animation will lead into live action and back into animation,
Cool.
which is interesting. So, all right, it's got to be a series. He says it's a way to tell stories that are gigantic and huge without spending 50 million an episode. So, there you go. All right, yes, military superhumans, including a human leader, a werewolf, a vampire, Frankenstein's monster, and a Gorgon. And this is why I said the Suicide Squad still exists because Gunn said that Weasel from his Suicide Squad is going to be on the show.
Oh,
So, yeah, so you get Weasel in there for comedy relief. He'll probably just die every episode and come back at the end.
yeah.
Spoiler alert. And then, so yeah, it'd be fun. I mean, I like monsters, so it'd be interesting. And then lastly, we have Waller, which is about Amanda Waller, and I believe they said they're bringing back the same actress. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, we're using the same actors as a continuation of Peacemaker, is what he's saying. So again, that's where I said Peacemaker still exists too in this universe. He said, "I'm working on Superman, so we can't do Peacemaker season 2. We're working on Waller in between. So maybe after this is done, we get uh, Peacemaker season 2 with John Cena, which again was an amazing freaking series.
So funny, so good.
So I'm all for it. I mean,
Yeah.
you get Gunn bringing back Peacemaker after he gets done with this first quote unquote phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for it. And I like the Amanda Waller character.
Mhm.
It's funny because you really only see her in the Suicide Squad, and then you see her like, or you see of her a little bit in Peacemaker, but she's always just that one in the background who, she's a dirty character who wants control over all this shit, and she's always failing miserably because they wind up like turning on her and doing their own thing. Like Suicide Squad was perfect, you know. Um, so I want to see more of her, and I forget she's a pretty famous fucking actress too. I forget the woman who played her. Um, but she's been in both Suicide Squad movies, and she showed up in Peacemaker, and she's really good. I like her a lot. I've seen her. You're probably looking her up, right?
Yep. Uh, Viola Davis.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's awesome. So and she after seeing Waller on one of the Batman animated series or on the Justice League animated series, she fit the role perfectly when
Mm-hmm.
she showed up in Suicide Squad. So yeah, I think it'd be cool. I mean, they bring her back for this and have a fun little series about her trying to pull the strings in the background.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun. Uh, any thoughts on Waller or
No, I think this would be great. If you can make Waller in between Superman, you can make Peacemaker season two. Um, you just can, I think. Maybe can't. Uh, but it's so well done and it's so funny. Um, come on.
yeah, yeah? Hell, I mean, call Cena have him cameo with Waller,
Yeah.
like just to set up season 2. But yeah, I think it'll be
There should there should be a Peacemaker cameo in all of these things, like there is a Stan Lee cameo in all the Marvel movies.
that would be funny as shit.
That would be fine.
Cena will do it too.
Yeah.
You know he loves this shit, and he loves playing Peacemaker. So like once they gave him his own series and he really got to embody all that shit, he was having a blast.
Yeah.
So yeah. So overall, I think it's gonna be cool. The last thing I had on this that I liked was they said that there are some rules that the two of them are going to abide by in creating this universe. It says anyone cast on the DC TV side as a character will also respectively play that character on the film side. So no more
Should
Grant
have done that.
yeah.
They
What's
should have done that with the Flash.
Flash, right? Yeah. So no more of that bullshit.
Yeah.
And he also said no one actor will play two parts. So Momoa is Aquaman going forward, not Lobo, because there was a petition for uh, Momoa to play Lobo.
Yeah. That
I
would be
think he would have
cool.
been a great Lobo.
He would have been great.
Yeah, I think it would have been awesome. But fair enough. You're not going to
Yeah.
have two, which obviously the only one that I can think of right now outside of Chris Evans playing. Well, all right, yeah, Chris Evans played the Human Torch, and then he played um, Captain America. Those are
Mhm.
two separate universes, two separate companies.
Mhm.
Again, you had the same thing happen with James Brolin played
Yep.
Thanos, and then he played Cable.
Yep.
Again, at the time, it was two separate universes, two separate companies. The funny part about that is because Deadpool being Deadpool, he actually calls him Thanos in the movie. It's funny, because
Ryan Ryan Reynolds played uh, Deadpool, played Green Lantern and Deadpool.
you know,
Um, Michael B. Johnson, Michael B. Jordan did it in Fantastic Four and in Marvel.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. He's the Human Torch in the second
the shittiest
iteration of Fantastic Four. Yeah. Who else? Is there anybody else?
I don't know, but it's happened a few times.
Oh, Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck was Daredevil and Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. Now those I don't mind so much, like that one and the Ryan Reynolds one. I don't mind so much because it's two completely different universes.
Yeah.
The other ones, like with Brolin and whatever, those were both Marvel movies, but they were two different companies. Now the issue is Fox has been bought out by Disney, so they're ignoring all those other movies because they have to. Again, except for Deadpool, because Deadpool breaks the fourth wall. You know, he can make those jokes, but they're going to ignore everything else that came before. So you're not going to reference Michael B. Jordan being Human Torch. He was
yeah.
So, but I do like. Again, I think Momoa would have been an awesome Lobo, especially like just his personality, his look.
Yeah.
CGI a little bit of that, almost like a Thanos type of thing, into the white, long-haired Lobo.
Yeah.
But
here's my question. Momoa is awesome. He's a good Aquaman. I like how he plays the character. I like that it's not blonde-haired, blue-eyed Arthur Curry. Right.
Yeah, I like this take better than the comic book version.
Me too. But why Momoa? Why is he the only one that stays? Now, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm just asking the question. Like, why Momoa as Aquaman and not Henry Cavill as Superman? I don't love Ben Affleck as Batman.
And ironically, flip side, he was my favorite one.
I liked Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Like, why not her? Why Momoa?
Yeah, and that I don't know. Again, I'm hoping maybe he's pulling the wool over some people's eyes for a little while he puts his shit up. I doubt it, but I mean, I was kind of hoping because like I said, I really like Cavill, and I don't think he was given his fair due to be able to play Superman, not the real Superman. You know,
right.
He played a great Superman, and he embodied the character they gave him. But to me, he also looked like he could embody the actual comic book Superman.
Yep.
And to not give him that shot is kind of a disservice to the fans and to him. So, yep. But I don't know who the fuck you get. Like you said, the one guy from Top Gun.
Maverick. Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. Overall, I like the slate he's announced. I want to see more cool things coming pretty soon. Hopefully, we'll get some more announcements. Maybe we'll have a couple of conventions coming up that we can get something else out of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I like the slate. I don't think there's anything on here that I'm completely not interested in. I mean, possibly Swamp Thing, just because I never really grew up reading it, and so I might not watch that one. But outside of that, I think everything else I'm pretty much down for. How about you?
Yeah, I'm certainly interested. I doubt I'll watch. I can't see myself getting super into Swamp Thing, but again, I love DC. I think they have the most iconic characters, and so it's interesting that they're not doing all of the icons right away. That they're going deep in the sort of backlog of characters. So we'll see what that looks like, right? The Authority and Creature Commandos and all that stuff. I hope they get in these universe stories. I hope they get super deep. I hope they do in Lanterns. I hope they do the Eyeball and the Planet One and the whatevers. Get weird. I hope that in Brave and Bold they bring in Nightwing and the other of the sort of Batman family. I hope they do all that stuff.
Yeah, me too. I've got faith in them. we'll see. We got a long way to go. I got faith in him right now. But now speaking on the other side of things, where we already know we have faith in Kevin Feige. We got a handful of Marvel shit coming up. Um, I dropped a few things on there. I just want to see if you have any kind of thoughts or expectations or where you hope they take any of these. Like you have Ant-Man Quantumania coming up, Secret Invasion, Kang Dynasty, Armor Wars, Deadpool 3, and then the Mutants, X-Men, Fantastic Four, first real appearances and not just a cameo in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on any of those?
Yes, I want it all. I want I want Secret Invasion because the idea of the Skrulls is really cool, and that Skrulls have been living here and right masquerading as people and who's a Skrull and who isn't. That was very cool.
The comic. Did you read the comic series?
Uh,
So that one blew my mind because when they revealed how long different Skrulls were acting as different heroes at different points in time, they had taken over, and then those heroes were rescued. Right, like that whole concept blew my mind. Right,
yeah.
oh wow, this person you've been following for so long. I want to see how much of that they can actually work into the MCU now, because you have like we know spoiler alert for Spider-Man. Um, you know that at the end of the one with Mysterio, Nick Fury and Maria Hill were revealed to actually be Talos and another one, right? The two Skrulls, and Nick Fury is out in space with sword, right? So he's dealing with what's going to happen with the Secret Invasion. So that's coming up after that. The idea is like the rumor among the fans is Talos has been there for a while. Doesn't always make sense, right? Because there are times where Nick Fury's in there that in that movie in Spider-Man Far From Home, you can clearly see that Nick Fury. There are times where he doesn't quite act like Nick Fury, and then it makes sense at the end in the post-credit scene when you realize, oh, he's not fucking Nick Fury. There's something Nick Fury says, I think, Captain Marvel. Yeah, it's in Captain Marvel when they're dealing with the whole Skrulls and everything. And she says, well, how, tell me something about you that only you would know or whatever. And he's like, he says, I hate eating sandwiches cut diagonally. Do you remember that?
Not necessarily, but
yeah, he says I hate eating sandwiches cut diagonally. Right now, that was set in the '80s. In Age of Ultron, while Nick Fury is talking to the Avengers, he's making a sandwich. He cuts it diagonally.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. So, how far back have they actually been plotting these little things?
Right.
Because, and then for that was maybe Nick Fury, anytime he leaves, then Talos comes in and steps in for him for a little while. Because that would make more sense to me. Like if he has to go off planet to work with this sword thing, he leaves Talos behind to work with the Avengers and do whatever and cover for him. Because there are moments in between leading up to the reveal that he's off world that it makes more sense for it to actually be Nick Fury, than Talos.
Yeah.
So I want to see how in depth they get into that. But this Secret Invasion is a way to do all kinds of little stories, like things that didn't quite fit in where they can kind of massage it because that was actually a Skrull and this person had been stuck. It's definitely a way to bring back Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Which would be like mind blowing, I think. I don't know if I would do it there. I think it would be cool, depending on how, because it would have to be a really huge entrance.
Yeah.
But to have something like that happen where, it was actually the Skrull Tony that
died
himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that'd be crazy.
It could be, people will go nuts.
Yeah.
if Robert Downey Jr. came back,
Yeah.
and I think he would. I think he would. I think I've heard him say he would, depending on the story. So we'll see.
Um, the Armor Wars story is very cool. That Stark Tech falls in the wrong hands, and they have this thing that you put on because there's various bad guys that have uh, some kind of Stark Tech in their gear. So that would be cool. Um, X-Men, Fantastic Four, obviously one of them. I just like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, so I want more Deadpool.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously, we know we're getting Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, which I'm stoked
Yep.
for. That's going to be amazing. The two of them are just having so much fun fucking with each other that it's going to be epic. And he's been working his ass off to get back into Logan shape, so this should be cool. And the only thing they've said about it is they are not fucking with the ending of Logan at all, so that stands. So this is probably going to have something to do with Cable's time travel thing,
Yep.
and he plucks him out of time somewhere before that. So it should be interesting. I think it's going to be great. I I want to start meeting more of the mutants. I know there was that rumor where they were going to start sprinkling them in there. And I know we dealt with some things in the different series where you saw like Madripoor or whatever, and they actually reveal that Miss Marvel is a mutant in Miss Marvel. So, which is different.
Yep.
But so they at least that's the first mention of mutation that they've had. So it's a start. I really wish, and I know Kevin Feige came out and said it's going to be a while because we already had these plans. But he's been so good at like moving shit around and doing things that he can get little things in there and build this pretty quickly. So that hopefully, because that's what the fans want. Like,
Yep.
I mean, come on, we've known you bought Fox a while ago now. Like, step up the pace, do something. Make some moves. I really want to see the X Men. I want to see who they're going to get to play Wolverine again. I want to see what version of the X Men we're going to get. I mean, I would love to see a live action version of the X Men '93 team, or
Yep.
like back right when that cartoon was coming out, they had X Men Blue and Gold were teams in the X Men book, and it was like
Yep.
one was led by Cyclops, one was led by Storm, right? But that was like, to me, that was one of the biggest uh, classic groups of X Men, right? Because you had Cyclops and Beast and Jean Grey and Iceman still, but then you also had Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Colossus,
Angel. Yep.
Angel, right? You had a whole bunch of them in there. They threw Bishop in there, so there was a
Yep.
whole bunch of them in there. That Gambit came around then, Storm. Those guys, you can build a nice team of like 10 mutants.
Rogue. Yeah.
Rogue, yeah. And you can really do something cool with an MCU version of the X Men.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's going to be fun. It's just the start of the year, and I know we just got done talking 2 weeks ago about how much cool shit is coming. That I'm like, all right, come on, let's go. I
Yeah.
want
Right.
shit. But yeah. So, you have anything else on any of this shit?
No. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to. It's a good time to be a comic geek in all of these genres. So yeah, bring it. Hurry up, James.
Yeah, let's go. Hurry up. All right. On that note, again, if you have not watched The Last of Us, I just started it. Watch that. Tulsa King, the Sylvester Stallone about
Mhm.
the mafia guy. That's another good one. You guys go watch that. Reading, if you're looking for something to read, Stephen King's got a book, Fairy Tale, that I'm reading now. That's really
Oh,
cool.
nice.
I haven't even gotten into like the meat of it, but it's really interesting. So, and Heather bought it for me for Christmas. I told her that, and she was like, "You're gonna like this one," because she read it, and she's like, "You're gonna really like this one." So,
Nice.
yeah, it should be cool. All right, I think that's all we got for this week. We'll see if we can get back next week. We'll, if not, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Right.
We'll go with that promise for now. At least every 2 weeks. If we can do every week, great. If not, we'll do every 2 weeks. All right. In that case, we will catch you shortly. And that's it. Have fun. Go do something geeky. All right. I don't have a good night. Good night. Well, I used to say good night, Tony, but hey, you know what? I know Christopher's listening out in Germany. So good night, Christopher.
Right. Good night. Henry Cavill is Superman forever.
Damn. See, we miss you, Eric.